One of the theories related to social psychology is self-affirmation theory. Self-affirmation theory, self means ourselves, and affirmation, assertion or confirmation, that to assert to ourselves means confident, to be self-confident, that we are um, in a positive way. We think about self in a positive way. Let's read what's written in this slide. Self-affirmation is about increasing the positivity of the self, especially after a threat to self-esteem. If we as a person have been threatened and we start to feel depressed and threatened or frustrated, something like that. So this theory is to affirm or to confirm that we are positive, not negative. That we should feel about selves in a positive way, not in a negative way. The second sentence in the same slide: self-affirmation strategies have been found to be helpful in reducing depressive ruminations and increasing positive mood. According to Carl et al., they uh, argued that there are strategies or there are schema or plans have been set related to self-affirmation theory. These strategies, the purpose of these strategies is what? Is to help the individual or the people to reduce depression, ruminations, or depression meditations, and to increase positive mood, that we should be in a positive, healthy way in thinking about ourselves and not to be negative towards ourselves. Now we move to the definition of self-affirmation theory. The self-affirmation theory posits that people have a fundamental motivation to maintain self-integrity, a perception of themselves as good, virtuous, and able to predict and control important outcomes. This theory, I will explain this sentence. This theory proposes uh, that people has, or the individual has a fundamental or a basic motive to maintain their self-affirmation or self-assertion, as well as to feel peaceful. To maintain self-integrity means to be self-peaceful, a perception of themselves that we or the individual or people understand themselves as they are good people, they are goodness, they are able to predict, and at the same time that they can control the important outlets. In virtually all cultures and historical periods, there are socially shared conceptions of what it means to be a person of self-integrity. Means what? All cultures and all over the history, there is a common among all the social cultures that the common related to what is the meaning of self-integrity, which means to self-affirmation or self to be have your own principle, fairness, morality, honesty, all this under the term integrity. So self-integrity means self-honest, self-honor, self-principle, self-moral, fairness, and so on. Having self-integrity means that one perceives oneself as living up to a culturally specified conception of goodness, virtue, and agency. So, if we feel about self that we are uh, that we have honor, that we have a principle, that we have morals, that we are good, that means that we understand ourselves as a living being in within a culture, and this is specified in the under the conception or under the meaning of goodness, virtue, and agency. Self-affirmation, self-affirmation theory examines how people maintain self-integrity when this perception of the self is threatened. So this theory is concerned to examine or to explore how people can keep themselves in a good way, in a moral or virtue or fairness when they feel that they are themselves are threatened. So they try to assure themselves that they are good, that they are kind, that they are fair, that they have morale, that they have principles, and so on. Um, Now we are going to give a hint about the background and history of the idea of the self-affirmation theory. Uh, Claude Steele is proposed to be the founder of this theory, as he is a social psychologist, and he proposed the theory of self-affirmation. Um, Due to Claude, he mentioned that a major insight of this theory involves the notion that although people try to maintain specific self-images, such as being a good student or being a good family member, that is not their primary motivation. Here we want to focus on that the major intuition of this theory is concerned with the notion, with the idea that although that the people is trying to show themselves in a special way, like for example he is a good student or a good member of the family, but this is not the main option or the main motivation to do that. And this will lead us to reinterpret or to re-explain the uh, meaning of cognitive dissonance, which means what? Cognitive means perception. Dissonance means inconsistency. Inconsistency means if that you are not consistent with what you are doing. You are behaving in a special way, but this is not consistent to what you want, to what your motivation is beyond of that. For example, in a classic cognitive dissonance study, people are shown to change their attitude to bring them in line with their past behavior. People want to show that they change their attitude, although in order to show that they are the same as their past, but this is not their main motivation. But they are showing just that they are. This is not their intention to behave in this way. So that's mean that they change their behavior to show that they are consistent to their past behavior. Here are some contributions to self-affirmation theory. Some issues related to self-affirmation theory or behaviors of people related to self-affirmation theory. People want to see their attitudes as consistent with their actions. For example, students who write in favor of tuition increases. They want when a student is writing down every note is saying in the class, he wants to show that his attitude uh, is consistent with the action, that he is caring about the class and caring about his, what is been telling about the lecture, so that he not only depend on the sense of listening, but also depend on the writing down what everything he heard or she heard, in order to show action related to the attitude of the importance to learn more or to gain more information. People have been shown to be more open to persuasive information and less biased in their evaluations of political information and health risk warning if they are first permitted to self-affirm in unrelated domain. For instance, by reflecting on an important personal value. Also, people to make self-affirmation uh, can show that they are persuaded of information and they are not prejudiced or biased to evaluations. For example, evaluations related to political information or warning about health risk, for example, like what we are now in the situation of COVID-19. Uh, when this happen, if they are the first permitted to self-affirm in unrelated domain, in a domain is not related to them. For instance, uh, at that time, for example, they will reflect on an important personal value. They will reflect important person value. Also, self-affirmation, this theory can contribute or can help in reducing physiological and psychological stress responses. This is the three main contributions to self-affirmation theory.